Welcome back to Mcoc Outbundy Rules, everybody. I got a fun video, top 5 mutant champs with suicide masteries. So I'm showing the suicide masteries here, and I'm going to go over some basic rules for when I say top 5. I use top as a word really combination between favorite and best. I don't believe there's an overall best. It depends on content and subjective, so I'm putting what's good for a lot of content as my favorite when I use the word top. I only rank champs that I have and not based on other opinions or vids. I don't say who's great by watching others play. I do not have Omega Red, so I'm really considering this a top 5 mutant champs outside of Omega Red. As everybody knows, Omega Red's one of the top mutant with suicides to begin with. So that's no brainer, so that's irrelevant, but he won't be on this list. Personal opinions based on sustainability, attack, utility, etc. I'll also take into consideration who's dependent on other items such as synergies. All that with suicides are going to be my criteria when I really go by the word top. So number 5 on here, I am going to put as Cable with the Horseman. Apocalypse of Horseman synergy. Put him as number 5. So main reason why he is in the top 5 is because he does insane damage with the synergy. We're going to see the Horseman of Apocalypse up there. He's simple and easy to use. All you really got to do is heavy attack. So you can bait heavy, bait specials heavy, whatever it might be. If you get them in the corner, you can sometimes spam heavy, especially if they don't have any power to come bat you back at. So just heavies. Even though he is not have the poison or bleed immunities, he does not rely on specials, meaning recoil isn't going to hurt. All I really care about is that spamming those heavies as much as I can to get those degeneration up when I have that Horseman of Apocalypse synergy there. So that's the big thing. If I want to launch some S3s, sure, why not? I don't take recoil damage from S3s. So big reason why he's in top 5 again, massive easy damage. This is an undupe R1 6-star, okay? Not even ranked up. This is just an R1. And we're seeing the kind of damage that's coming up. I'm going to finish off this 550,000 health pool in 40-something hits, give or take, with an unranked 6-star Cable, which is pretty dang good. The reason he's not higher on this list is one, he has very little utility outside that massive damage. Even he does get a little bit of Horseman synergies. However, he also relies heavily on the synergy. So with that being said, I do take that into consideration where I put him on there. If a champ is overly dependent on certain situations and or synergies, I can't help note that and put everything in totality in my very subjective, non-official, informal list that I have here for you right now. Like I said, the only real rules I have on this list are the ones I stated at the beginning, and this is my personal opinion. Of course, this can change based on content extremely quick. So here's another fight. I'm going to be showing a few different fights or a few clips of different parts of fights, kind of showing why I'm having some of these champs on this list or in the videos. We're going to be seeing number 4 coming up right here with Emma Frost with Suicides. All right, so Emma Frost. Big things for her why I have her on this list is, as I've mentioned many times before, including other videos I have of Emma Frost, is the fact that she is probably my number 1 favorite utility champ in the entire game. She does so much when used correctly. If you don't know how to use her correctly, please watch my tutorial on how to use her. She's like 2 different champs. You can switch back and forth between telepath and diamond mode. So the big thing with her is she starts off in diamond form, which is the immunities, so the bleed and poison damage goes away right off the get-go. So one of the biggest negative areas when it comes to suicides is automatically taken off with Emma. So that is awesome. That's a big reason. So she gets that 60% attack bonus without those bleed and poison issues. Very, very good thing right there with that. Another thing when it comes to her, even though she does have a very nice S2, you build up 8, 9, 10 prowess, launch that S2, does some silly damage, and I'll show an example or two of that on the video. That does cause recoil, so if you're doing long fights, she doesn't overly rely on that. Sure, you can get a little extra utility sometimes or damage from the S1 or S2, but she by no means relies on it. She by no means needs to do those kind of special rotations some champs do. So I can do S3s, and as we'll see in these videos, she still does some pretty dang nice S3 damage, and she can also get some combat power rate control with that S3 as well. So an extra little bonus there. So she's not going to do insane over-the-top damage with suicides, as we'll see with some of the other champs here, which is why she's only number 4 on this list instead of higher up on this list. If she did a little bit heavier damage as compared to some of the others, she would be higher, but I did give her the edge over Cable at number 4, because unlike Cable, she does not rely on synergies. I don't need the synergies. There is no Horseman synergy here. If I did use a Horseman synergy here, then she would be doing a little bit better as well. Nothing too crazy over the top. Doesn't have quite as much impact on her as it does, say, Cable. But the fact she doesn't need that synergy is a big reason she is above him, and that she has much, much, much more utility over him. Now we're moving on to number 3, Domino. I would not be surprised if some of you are a little shocked at this. Some of you might have expected Domino higher, because Domino is amazing for suicides, especially with synergies, and I'm really focusing on with synergies on Domino right here, because I have the Flaming Trinity, which includes Massacre and includes Red Hulk. So all I really have to do is spam those heavies, so I could parry heavy, bait heavies with counter heavies, all that good stuff. Super easy. And as long as I'm getting those heavies out there, I'm just absolutely destroying the defenders with that, with tons of damage. I can also use S3, and sure, an S2 is kind of fun with Domino a lot. S3 does some crazy damage too. We see all that bleed damage coming out of that S3. So I can easily supplement an S3 instead of an S2 or an S1, which probably wouldn't be using anyways generally with Domino too much. But you are able to do that. There's not getting any recoil damage. We see Winter's this 550,000 health pool is already down to under 40%, and I'm still ranging around 98% health, right on up there, 97, 98% health, because of how the fight's going. And that's with the suicides, and that's even without the immunities right here. So we're seeing this whole fight, and this fight can be done in less hits, of course, but it's going to vary, because one of the negatives on Domino, the biggest advocates against Domino, and there's a group of them, there's a lot of Domino haters out there, will say that she's RNG dependent. And yeah, some fights she'll do the same fight in half as many hits, the next fight is twice as many hits, because there is going to be some RNG and how much damage you're getting from that. So that is a big role there, and that is one reason why she's only number 3 and not higher on my list. But the biggest reason I put her as number 3 instead of higher on my list is the fact, for this really to be super awesome as far as the damage with suicides, is she becomes heavily dependent on the synergy. If she wasn't so heavy dependent on the synergy, then I would probably have her 2 even competing for number 1 on this list. But because of the fact I have to bring 2 other people along to really maximize this fighting strategy right here for suicide purposes, it does weigh in my head a little bit, because that is something that takes away from the overall team. A lot of content is not going to be a big deal, but I do got to consider. And also a range of utility is something as well on here. Of course, there's some on here. She's obviously no Emma, but as far as utility goes, but I did rate her higher than Emma, just because look at this massive damage. And we see an S2 there. I do take some recoil damage, but the fight was ending, so figured, hey, why not? And it could do some massive damage. Number 2 on the list, this might surprise some of you too, I actually put Namor. And Namor's got a really bad rap after the adjust, or people will say nerf. Nah, the reason why I like Namor a lot is the fact that you can just build up his little charges right there and just start spamming S3. Additionally, at the beginning of the fight, you get some health when you got willpower on suicides. He goes up a good 10-15% beginning of every fight based on his setup, his abilities. And you see, when you do this right, you got that S3. Now, a couple seconds later, I got another S3. When you time him correctly, it's a little easier with an aggressive defender, so it's a little bit harder to do this on ROL sometimes, where they're a little more passive, but it's relatively easy to spam 3 or 4 S3 in a row in a lot of fights. And there's 3. I got 3 S3 within a matter of a few seconds each time getting that Fury buff. So this is why Namor's number 2 on my list, and why he's so high and higher than some of the others, is S3 do not take recoil. He gains health at the beginning of every fight with willpower, and I can just keep spamming S3, and I can do some massive addition. Look at this S2 right there. Sure, there's some recoil damage right there, but that S2 and the damage is just absolutely insane. And I'm just kind of going to show what he could do there. So got some slop going on this fight, but nothing too crazy. We saw insane damage going on from him. Keep in mind, he does his best stuff spamming his S3, so no recoil. And that is a massive reason why I have him number 2 on my list. You can do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of damage in the matter of seconds of actual playtime, not including the S3 animations, of course. Just with a little bit of practice on there. So, and then we'll see some damage going on this fight as well. He also has the bleed damage going on, but like I said, you'll see me use Namor in some of my videos. I haven't done any tutorials on him yet. I'll probably do one in the relatively near future, but he's pretty easy to use once you understand how he uses and how he works, and when to use those S3s and how to rebuild the power. And you see again right there, another S3. But you just start smashing those S3s and you just decimate the opponent. You just take him to town, and that's really what's going on here. And again, keep in mind, this list is based on my personal opinions. Can you easily argue some of my choices and rankings? You better believe you could. But also remember my rules at the beginning of this, which include I only bring champions in which I have, and based on my opinion. Keep in mind, I have gone through all content in the game. Pretty much almost out of content to play other than a little tiny bit of 7-1 exploration left. So, and these are all champs I have found very useful in a lot of this content as well. So these are my personal opinions, but they're my educated personal opinions from my experience as well, talking about the pros and cons of them. He does also have some great use on some champs as far as like the Korg and the Electros when he got high sig, and this is a max sig Namor, so even more so, and that's something very few champs can really do, so that gives him a lot of bonus. You're not going to see that in these ROL fights that I'm using to really show what these champs can do, but that is one of his biggest abilities as well. So when you factor that in with what I'm showing you right here, possibilities are almost endless with this guy. Lots of fun to play with too, and you could just see the damage go on down. Of course, there could be some regeneration kicking in there as well. Lots of good things. So again, I'm pretty positive some people are going to disagree with my number 2, and you're more than welcome to disagree with this choice, but I am explaining my logic for him as number 2 to include over the others. With that, number 1. Remember, for those of you waiting to see Omega Red, I said very clearly at the beginning, I do not have Omega Red, so he will not be in this list. I'm really considering this a top 5 mutants with suicides outside of Omega Red, as anyone who knows anything about this game and Omega Red or suicides know they're synonymous with each other. So Magneto I have as my number 1, and this is even an undupe one. Okay, some of the great things Magneto does with suicides. You see those, 13, 14,000 heavies, pretty nice, without any real need. When they crit right there, we get those prowess, and we're going to see some damage. She's an 83% of a 550,000 health pool. So we got a lot of health right there. So watch this S3. We saw some massive damage, and the 6 figures come off on the initial hit of the S3. Now we're seeing 8,500 a tick with these 28 bleeds. I'm not going to touch them. We're just going to watch the Winter Soldier flop. Boom! And down he goes. Only 14 hit. I've actually done that fight in only 9 hits. Got the video on my channel. Just look at that one a couple months ago after the buff. So it could be done in much less. 12 hit KO of the Wolverine on ROL right here. A lot of people, this is ROL's very outdated content, but it still gives some good practice, and this is a fight that people will struggle with sometimes. Take out this very high health pool, crazy regeneration fighting champ in just a couple handfuls of hits. I like Magneto for suicides because he has the 90% bleed resistance, which actually helps him heal health pretty easily. Makes things really good right there. and he does not rely on special 1s or 2. His 2 can be pretty good, but he is pretty well known for his special 3, which special 3s do not cause recoil. So for using Magneto, all you have to really do with Suicide is parry heavy, charge some heavies in there. Check out my 4-minute tutorial on my tutorials on Magneto if you have not seen them on how to use him. He's amazing. And we're going to see 550 health pool on this vision just get completely decimated with very little effort right here. And you get those prowess up. Watch the prowess in the top left. We'll see, with this being a metal champ, I can get unlimited by heavies. I can then start charging them here. You see me charging them up as well to increase what I have already gained. Again, if you don't understand what I'm doing, check out my other videos. This is just a little highlight reel. I do have better tutorials on most of these champs on my channel on how to mimic some of what I'm doing or why I'm doing what I'm doing to get these results. And we still got my prowess up at 38, but I really want to get an S3 here. Again, S3 is really Magneto's bread and butter, and S3 has no recoil. So he is amazing with Suicide because of his bleed resistance, the fact his main biting style is parry and heavy, and then S3. So I do want to give honorable mentions to some other champs that are not in this video, really including, watch this fight get decimated, Apocalypse. I love Apocalypse, but those S1 and S2 do a lot for him in getting those debuffs. Of course, Colossus. Colossus just was such a tough one for me to leave out, but I just haven't been a fan of him as much because I like his specials and he can take a lot of recoil. Plus, he's so dependent on synergies, in my personal opinion. Again, these are my personal opinion. Could you argue him in here? Of course you could. I hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe to MCOC Al Bundy Rules.